Welcome again. We are going to, this one's going to be kind of lengthy. I am actually going to walk you through an entire new project from start to finish. Something that you typically see probably fairly often with your customers is a hand sketch such as this. We're going to recreate this cart for Liquidyn. Most of their stuff, 99.9% of their stuff is 304 stainless steel, and it is polished. They have requested it to be time saved, so a nice brushed finish, polished welds for food grade. Just to kind of go through this, we've got 1 inch or inch and a half square tube. I am actually going to use inch and a half, probably 120 wall thickness. And then we've got up on here, the handle is a 2-inch round tube. So what we'll do is we'll cap the ends. He is transitioning for this front view here. He's transitioning from 24 to what appears to be 13-inch. And then from the side here, he's got 28-inch. We're going straight up. And I am to assume, well, we've got 20-inch elevation for the pump platform. And then we've got a little kickback here, so we'll assume a standard push cart height. So we'll have to figure that out. Let's see here. Up front, we've got these little round bars that he'll want the edges eased on. So a nice ball end, 1/4-inch round bar, so that he could hang his gaskets and clamps. He wants 4 of them. He's got 3 drawn, but he wants 4. So let's get started. First thing I did is I did create a project folder. I do something, let's see if it's taking its sweet time here. I create customer data files, and then you can see all my customers here. So I'm going to go to, wrong one, Liquidyn, and then you can see all the projects. I've labeled this one so that it's easy to track down. 2019-0074 pump cart with shelf bends. And then I've got their information in here. I have done something similar to this so that I grabbed those drawings. You can kind of see what I did here before. But we're going to recreate something very similar to this. You can see the little round bars and so on and so forth. But we're going to recreate this. Just so that you've got a kind of an understanding and an idea of how to go through a complete project. More than likely this is going to be probably 2 or 3 videos so that we can break it up a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to New, and I'm actually going to start an assembly if it ever comes up. It's running super slow today. Standard IAM, so a standard assembly. And I'm going to start everything in this one assembly. Man, this thing is running really slow today. I'm going to have to restart and figure out what's going on. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, something is up. Should not take this long. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. And what I do is I save it as the project number. Now that doesn't mean that you have to, but it makes it easy for me to track down. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say 2019-074-00. So that is my, actually I'm going to do 01. We'll have 00 for the very top assembly where it is completely finished. If we need it, it's there. If not, so be it. So we've got an assembly, but nothing's in it. We've got nothing to populate into it. You can see from the file, all we have is an assembly, but no parts, no weldments, no nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and do create, and I'm going to do 2019-0074-02. And this is actually going to be the start of our frame. So we're going to do frame generator for the frame itself. Fairly easy. We're going to put in some variables and we're going to go from there. So the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to go into my parameters and I'm going to change this to overall length base. So what I'm looking at is the distance from here to here. and it is roughly, since he's got 28 inches from center to center, and I'm going to use 1.5 inches, so I need to add that 1.5 inches to 28. And since we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and add tube width is 1.5. So I'm going to go 28 plus square tube width. And you see that it changed to black as soon as that it accepted the formula that I used. So now we're at 29.5 outside. Now I'm going to go overall width, base, and he has got 24. It looks like it's outside to outside, and that's what I'm going to assume. It doesn't look like it's to the center of the caster. Yeah, he's got a little dash line, so I'm assuming that he's going to the outside. And then it transitions down to 13. So let's go. Overall width, let's say upper base, is 13 inches. Okay, so we got our length, we got our width. That starts that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a variable for the distance from here to here. I'm actually going to add a variable for the casters themselves, and he doesn't have it on there, so I'm going to go back over to my original sketch here and see. So it's 6-inch casters, so it's 6 inches from, yeah, 7.5 inches from the bottom there to the bottom there. So I'm going to come back into Inventor. Yeah, I know. Add a numeric caster overall if I could just spell caster diameter 6 inches, and then we're going to say, I need to get back to his sketch, he has got 20 inches. So from here to here is 20 inches. So I'm going to give this new variable the 20 inches minus the caster height, and that will be our frame height. So let's go base frame height, and I'm going to say 20 minus caster overall height. I'm actually going to add this. Ground to shelf height is 20. I'm going to highlight this. And I'm actually going to change this variable, highlight the 20 and put that in there. So it didn't change, I'm deriving that variable from a user input variable instead of just having 20 in there. So now we've got the height of the base. Next thing I'm going to add is, let's go base to, no, let's go ground to handle height center line. We're going to say that for now, just for shits and giggles, it's 42 inches. And this one is going to be base frame to handle height center line. So now we go, I'm going to copy, highlight that one, copy, paste, minus caster overall height. So I'm going to do this one because we can't copy and paste, or it'll get rid of the formula that we originally had in there. Caster overall height tab. So it's 34.5 inches. I'll show you here. It is 34.5 inches from the base here to the center line of that, to the center line of the 2-inch handle. So the next thing we need to do is we need to put in some variables here so that we know how far back this is actually going to kick back. We could do some trig, figure out an angle, or we can just make it easy on ourselves. I know that it's about 8 inches per this drawing that I've already done before. About 8 1/16 from the back side of the cart to the center line of the handle. So I'm just going to use that variable without having to do too much math. Let's go. And I'm just coming up with these as I go along. I know it's taking a little bit longer to come up with the variable names just because I haven't done it. This drawing was actually created in 2014, so it's been a long time, so I don't remember what I would have named the variables then. So let's go H offset base to H horizontal center line handle. And we'll do 8 inches. And let's say that it is, let's see if I've got another dimension in here it's 24 inches. So let's go vertical, vert, offset, base, frame, tube, handle, break. 24 inches. All right, so we've got most of the variables placed for the base itself and the casters. So now we can start drawing this up. So I'm going to say done. And we are currently in an IPT. We started an assembly, and then we created a part inside of that assembly. And what this part is going to be is the actual block that we're going to generate the frame off of. So I'm going to hit S for sketch. I'm going to make sure that I'm sketching on the top plane, rotate that, and I'm going to go to 2-point center and start this. Put a dimension, hit D for dimension, list your parameters, and we're going to go overall length of the base and overall width of the base. So now we've got our envelope for the base tube frame, and these are outside dimensions. So that's one of the things you have to remember, that these are outside. So when you go to place the tubing, it's more than likely going to place it in the very center of the tube. So we'll have to switch that variable when we get to that point. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this. And here's a new little feature, is work planes. We're going to start with a work plane. I'm going to go ahead and expand the origin, and I want to find that work plane that I'm working on right now. I want to move that up, and I want to find the variable for the base height. Overall length up, overall width. So where are we at? Did I put it in there? I don't think I did. Vertical offset base frame to handle. Nope. I did not create that, so I'm going to have to go back in and create it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead. I know that it's 17.5 inches. Or no, it was 24. We did create that. I need to find out what I named that. So let's go back into here. I know that it was base frame height. There it is. So I did create it. So I'm going to double click on that ground plane, or this work plane based off of the ground, highlight that, and paste it in there. So what I did, just to go back through that, I went into the parameters, found the base frame height, Control C to copy it out, say done, double click on your work plane, and then pasted it, Control V, and then select it. So now we have the height. We need to create a transition from here to here. So I am going to sketch on that work plane, and I am going to do a center 2-point rectangle again. I'm going to bring this out. I know that this top, the length of the top shelf is the same length as this. So there's a couple of different things I could do here. I could either project the geometry of this, and I'll go ahead and do that. So I just projected the geometry, so now it can find that. Before that, I'm going to undo this. Before that, it doesn't have anything to connect to. So to connect it to that geometry, I have to project the geometry of the item directly below it. So I project that, and you can see how it projects to that work plane. So now I'm going to do a coincident constraint. I can either come up here, click on that, and click here, and then click on that projected geometry. And you can see, since it's based off of the origin point, it snaps. It automatically turns this line over here black because it says, okay, I know that I'm centered on this, and I'm connected here, so this is symmetrical about this origin point. So we did connect that using the coincident constraint. The other way you can do that, and I just did an undo, I'm going to grab a hold of that point there, and I should be able to drag that back, and you can see how it snaps right to that line. So now if you look at it, it's literally got a coincident constraint that's available because I drug that back. It's somewhere in there. Yeah, my computer is jacked up. I need to do a restart. It should show that there's a coincident constraint inside of here that's holding that you should be able to right click on it and delete it if you needed to. We don't need to. I'm going to go ahead and do D for dimension the width of this top shelf, go to list parameters, and find my parameter that I created. Did I create one? Sometimes it's just easier to go back in and see what it should be. 15.5 inches wide, as long as, no, it's 13. He made it 13 wide. So I'm going to look for the parameter that is 13. Overall width upper base. I'm going to copy that out. Double click there, paste it, and there we go. So now we have our upper shelf and our lower shelf. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition this from this profile here to this profile here. This works really, really well for, let's see here. Trying to think of a project. I can't think of a project right off the top of my head, but it works really well for if you've got like a cone or some sheet metal for ducting or something like that. It works really well to transition, especially if you've got a turn in that curve. This loft feature works really well for those kind of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I went to 3D model, went to loft. I'm going to pick on the bottom profile. And it's asking me, okay, well, what's the next profile? Well, it's right there. So now I have got this profile. If I look at the side, it looks a little bit funky from here, but you can see that the sides are exactly straight. If I look at the end here, we're looking good. We transition from the 24-inch base to the 13-inch upper, and I can say, okay. So now we've got the start of our sheet metal, and I'm going to go ahead and throw in a few. Trying to see how he has this. He's got it transitioning all the way up. And what I mean by that, I'll show you the sketch here again. Previously, you can see how he transitions even the back and the handles. Previously, what we did is you can see how this frame here goes straight up from the corners. It doesn't transition in the back. It doesn't transition in the front here either. It just goes straight up, and it's the width all the way back, and then there's a horizontal cross member. So I'm going to bring that over there. Let's minimize that. So now we can put a tube across here, tube there, tube there, tube there. And so what we do need is we want some uprights, so a little jog in the neck, and the handle, and then the handle across. And that should give us everything we need to start doing the framework. So let's do, how do I want to skin this? I'm going to do a sketch on the back side here, and I am just going to actually, yeah, I'm going to do a sketch on this side. I'm going to go up here, just draw a line. So I am in sketch, drawing a line. I'm going to hit the equals button, which is this constraint right here. That equals that. So both of them are the same length. So if I change the length of this one, the other one changes as well. And we've got a variable in here for that height, and it was 24. Vert offset, handle break. So we're going to go from the dimension from here to here, paste that, and there we go. So now we've got the two vertical tubes that are coming straight up. Now we need to jog that back at an angle. So I am going to finish that sketch. And we are going to create a work plane based off of this axis point here. And if I click on this face, you can see how it automatically throws another work plane up at 90 degrees. It says, okay, do you want it to be 90 degrees? I sure do. So I'm going to sketch on that work plane. And I'm going to bring this back. I've got to project the geometry. So just projected that geometry, so now that should be available, and you can see a little green dot that it gave me. I'm going to go back into my parameters here and find that 8-inch. There's the horizontal offset. Say done. Hit dimension. There's our horizontal offset. I'm going to paste that. So just to go through it again, I don't need to do this on the other side, but I'm going to go through it one more time, just a little bit slower. So that it sinks in a little bit more. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. And then I'm going to do, let's see if it'll give me this to this. Okay, so that did take that without having to project the geometry there. So I'm going to go to, let's see if I can find it. Vert offset base frame handle break. No, it's just easier to do it this way. So I'm going to go back into the parameters. And let's find base frame handle height. There we go. Double click on our dimension, paste it. There we go. So now we've got the tube coming up, bent back, and terminating up here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch. I'm going to come to the other side. And I'm going to recreate what I just did on this opposite side. I don't need to do that. Actually, I'll show you that real quick here. So I'm going to do a work plane based off of this face and based off of that axis point. And it says 90 degrees. Yep, we're good there. So now I'm going to do a sketch from there. And I'm going to project the geometry. This is the easiest way to do it. Project the geometry and say finished. So now if I ever change these dimensions here, if I come in here and I say, okay, I don't want that, I want that to be 39. Once I return, you'll see this projected geometry. It automatically updates. That's exactly the way you want that to be. But I don't want that. I don't like that, so I'm going to double click on our dimension here, paste that back in there, and finish and edit. And that'll update. So now let's put the handle across there, and he does not have a dimension shown. I'm going to make it the same width. He doesn't have a dimension showing how long that line is there. I'm going to make it the same width as the base so that we stay inside of that envelope and we're not knocking it against a wall or anything like that. So I'm going to make it slightly shorter just so that we can cap off the ends of the 2-inch tube. I am going to, let's go to 3D model, and I want to put a point, one on the end of the end of the tube that's coming up, and one on the end of this tube. If it'll let me. There it is. Okay. So now I've got 2 points. I'm actually going to create an axis from that point to that point. So now you can kind of see our handle, or at least where that's located. Got all sorts of stuff going on here. So let's paste a sketch on this axis point here. So I'm going to create another work plane from here to here. And again, it asks me 90 degrees. Sure, that's what I want. Now, you don't have to do that. I just don't want to have to enter a bunch of information that I've it's just redundant. So if I were to pick on this plane and I pick on here, it's automatically defaulting to 90 degrees. Now I have to do 0 degrees to make it parallel to that face. So I prefer to pick on, knowing that that it's automatically going to default to the 90 degrees. I'm going to pick on this face, and I'm going to pick on that and select OK. So now I've got a work plane that I can sketch on. I need that piece of paper here so that I can sketch on it. So I'm going to hit S for sketch, click on that work plane, and I am going to project the geometry of that axis point here. I'm actually going to switch this to a construction line. You can see how it's dashed now. Reason why I do that is because if I'm placing the round tube on here and I accidentally pick on that axis point, that tube can be infinitely long. It could be super long. So I changed that to construction, and now it's no longer available to pick when you're generating your frame. So the next thing I'm going to do is go up to make sure that I'm in sketch. I'm going to go to Align, and I'm going to go ahead and pick on here, and I'm going to pick on here. Hit Escape, and I'm looking at the left side. I'm going to do a vertical constraint from the midpoint here to the midpoint down here. I don't think it did it. Like I said, I think I need to do a restart. I'm going to hit undo. Let's try that again. So I'm going to find the midpoint of that line, and I'm going to find the origin point, and it is not doing what I want it to. Yeah, it is not doing what I want it to. Okay, so what it's done so far is it's constrained it to this horizontal line. I don't want that. I'm going to undo this. I am going to see if I can project the geometry of the origin point. So I'm going to come over here, expand that, and project the geometry of the origin point. I am going to go vertical, come back to the midpoint of the line. Now we've got it. So I can double check that by putting a dimension from, need to project the geometry again, from here, here. So now I can double check that these are identical to each other. Yep, 5299. I'm going to undo that. That was just kind of a double check to make sure that it is centered, since this is acting flaky. And I'm going to make it equal to the base of this. No, I'm not. I take that back. I'm going to go from endpoint to endpoint, and I'm going to go it is acting so funny. What in the world? Oh, I know what happened. So what happened is you can see that I had finished the part feature, and I had gone back into the assembly. So now I've got to go back through. Let's delete that. I'm going to go back through. I am so sorry. I'm going to edit this part, because right now we are in the assembly file. So I'm going to edit this part. Shit. There's all sorts of stuff that are in the assembly file. Fuck. Let's collapse this and find out what I've got going on. I'm going to delete all of this stuff. So you get the pleasure of seeing me screw up. Delete that. Now we can go back into the part file. And I am going to, we're in the part file, so we're in where all of these features are at. Ugh. I'm going to go to point. I'm going to go to that point. And then we're going to do it again. That's where it had happened. I remember what happened now. Alright, so we have those 2 points. We're going to throw our axis in here again. That point to that point. So now we've got our handrail again. Need our work plane so that we can sketch on it. 90 degrees. There we go. So let's go sketch on that work plane. I'm going to go line, project geometry, change that to a construction. Go line, make sure our construction isn't activated. Nice solid line. Now we want to project the geometry of the origin point. Let's just try it one more time, see if it works better now. now that I'm not all in the wrong level of the assembly. Do a dimension off of that. We're going to go, should be overall width base, and we're going to subtract, let's subtract a half of an inch to be on the safe side, because we're going to have end caps on there as well. So we're going to finish that sketch. Now we have got everything we need to start doing the frame generator. So finally we are going to return, we're in the part file now, it just returned it to the assembly file. The reason why it's an assembly is because we're going to build all of these tube parts in here, and that combined is the assembly. So I'm going to go up to design. I'm going to insert frame. And yep, because something is hanging this up, it's taking forever. I'm going to switch this down to square tube. Wait for it again. And we're going to use 1.5 inch, 1/8 inch wall. We want this to be 304. Appearance is as material. We want this to be, do we have a brushed? We should have a brushed. Semi-polished. We'll do satin brushed. Okay, so you can see how right now the orientation is based off of the center of the tube. And I'll go ahead and put that in there. You can see how we're going to have to change that, because right now we had originally planned for that to be on the outside of it, and we also want to make sure that that's turned 45 degrees, but I'm going to put one in here and see what happens. Let's escape out of that. Let's try that again. Let's see what happens when you select this end plane, because it's going to turn it, should turn it straight up and down. So we're still on, everything is good. 1.5 inch, 1/8 inch, 304 stainless steel. It's satin brushed. I'm going to go on this point here, and you can see how it's no longer clocked to that degree over there. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that that is the bottom of the tube and it's the outside of the tube, and that is perfect. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. You can see how that one is on the opposite side that we want it to be, and if we switch it, it moves it to the opposite side we don't want it to be. So I'm going to flip that. I'm going to deselect that. So if you hold down on your control key, you can deselect things, items that you've done before. I'm going to go ahead and try that on this one and see what happens. Beautiful. That is exactly what I wanted, and exactly what I had hoped would happen, is it's not picking this profile here, the angle, to clock that tube. So let's see if we can get this one to work too. It did. So the only one that's being a little bitch is the backside tube here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And what it's saying is, okay, I've got this frame. I'm starting to generate this frame. I'm going to put it in this folder. I'm going to generate all these different parts with their own individual part numbers. And I'm going to go ahead and just let it figure out what it needs to be as far as part numbers go. I really don't care. I can change that at any time. And you can see how it generated it. So we are looking fantastic so far. If we can just get this thing, there we go. So now we need to finish up this back tube here. I'm going to pick on this one, and now it's selecting the right orientation, the right direction for it to go. I'm going to apply that one and just keep saying okay. It'll just keep stacking them in the folder. If you look back at the folder now that we've generated, you can see that it is putting it somewhere it's not supposed to be. I'm not sure where it is, but we'll find out soon. We'll find out soon, and we'll move them. Okay, so let's go ahead and generate this frame up on top, and then we'll generate the legs coming down. So I'm going to pick on you. And it is in the wrong orientation, so I'm going to select that. Let's see if this one will do it. Nope, it's not going to do that one. So let's pick on this one, and say apply. Let's find out where it's putting it. Okay, so it is putting it in a subdirectory called ANSI tube, so it's putting it underneath it. It created its own little file folder, which is absolutely fine with me. As long as it's in my project folder, which is this 0074, I'm happy with that. I'm going to select OK. And wait for it, and then I'm going to select this back tube over here. See what it did? Is it clocked that stupid tube. Let's find out. I'm going to do an align. I haven't tried this before. Let's try an align with the surface. See what happens. Beautiful. So you can use this little align tick box. That is new. That is something new in 2020. So I aligned it with the top surface, so now all we need to do is select that. It'll bring it down for us. Beautiful. That is so nice. Okay. So now we've got our tops and our bottoms. One thing you can do, especially on really large assemblies, one thing you could do to make life a lot easier is you can right click on the part feature and we can make that transparent. So now we can still see it, especially if you hover over the top of it, but it's easier to see what is going on with the tubes. Makes life a lot easier. Alright, so now let's go ahead and put our tubes in for the support legs. So insert frame. Make sure that it's still 1.5 inches, 304, satin brushed. Yep, we're all good. So I'm going to put that there and see how it generates this. Boop. And it is on the wrong orientation, so I'm going to do that. And that's looking mighty fine. Now we'll probably have to bring that in so that it's actually connecting to the bottom, which is absolutely fine. We could do that, no problem. But for this purpose, we're just going to go through and generate no, that's not going to work. So deselect that one. Will that one work? We're just going to generate a simple frame without going into too many details, especially to keep this long, or else this video will be super long. Just checking to see if there's any way we can generate all the other tubes without getting out of the command. So we've got that one. Let's pick on this one. Orientation will be wrong on this one. Apply. That's fine with me. That one. Do. That orientation. Apply. Okay. Don't you dare select that. It's so slow. Okay, F4, we're going to pivot around to the back side. Pick on that one. Of course, the orientation is wrong again. We're going to apply that. Say OK. I didn't want to have to redo this video, but I think I might have to. It's so slow. It's going to make it tough on you. Okay, so we need to clean up the ends, obviously. I'm going to do the easiest first and miter the bottom box. Super easy. Make sure we're in design. Come to miter. Wait for it. Pick all of the tubes that we want to miter. Say OK. Boom. That easy. Done. Okay, so let's do the top now. I'm going to hit the space bar to bring the miter feature back up. Pick on all of those tubes. Say OK. Okay, tricky part. This right here. There's a couple of different ways that I can skin this cat. What I would probably end up doing is creating another sketch based off of the bottom of the tube to bring it to the very corner. For length purposes, I'm going to, well, length of the video purposes, I'm going to notch this so that it fits up in there nice and pretty, and I'm going to just trim that. So I'm going to trim the bottom of the tube, of these tubes first, and then we'll come up and notch those. So I'm going to trim that, I'm going to pick you, 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 and you. And then I'm going to pick this face because we're all... Oh, jeez. Picked the wrong face. Ha! Cancel. Let's try that again. I'm going to trim you, 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 and you. Face. I'm going to zoom up so that I know I'm picking the right thing. That face right there. Wait for a couple seconds. Hope that it doesn't crash because the computer is acting janky as can be. And you can see that we've got all of our tubes. That is beautiful. Now let's go ahead and... How do I want to skin this cat? I think I want to notch it. Let's try it. Okay, so we're going to pick on that tube first. Notch tool. That one. Let's see what happens. Say okay. Alright, so you can see we've got an outside face that we do not want, but this inside face, I think, let's open up that part. Let's see if we can find that part. So I'm going to go through all of our tubes, this one right here. You can see how it notched that profile. Let's go ahead and open it and take a look at the individual part file and see how that it actually notched it. Alright, so you can see that it notched that profile there, and we need to knock out the very end where it doesn't extend out. So I'm going to use that same feature. I'm going to close this. Sure, you can save it. I'm going to swing this back around here. I'm going to use the notch feature, and we're going to see if we can run the notch command again. So it's this part and this frame. And I have a feeling it's going to give me a warning and say, you can't do that. There's already a notch feature that is active. Nope. They have changed that. That's nice. So now we got to go through and delete some faces. So I'm going to open this up. We need to get rid of this radius here, this radius up on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit S for sketch, sketch on this profile here. We're going to project some geometry as much as we can. Let's go here. We're going to extend this line out. So based off of the projected geometry, that endpoint there, I'm going to go from here, and I'm actually going to go up just a little bit above it so that I know that I'm getting all of the part. I'm going to come down here, and to that point there. I'm going to say, I'm going to put a dimension on here of, let's just do 1/8 of an inch. So that if this ever grows, it's going to grow with it. And you'll never have a problem, or you shouldn't have a problem, with this line ever coming back down inside of the part. So now we've got our profile. Everything should be connected. We're going to find out here in just a second when we hit E for extrude and see if we can punch that hole. Yep, it selected the entire profile of what we just projected and drew the lines for. I'm going to switch that from extrude to cut, and I'm going to go through all and say OK. Now we've got a nice clean profile there. I'm going to save that, close it, and there we have it. You'd have to throw some weld in there, but for the most part, that is it. So that's something you'd have to do on each one of these tubes. It's unfortunate, but it's much easier than having to go through and do calculations and finagle with it until it fit that corner just right. So that's pretty decent. That's way easier than it used to be. And let's move on and do our handle, finish this up, and then we can finish up the rest of the cart in the next video. So come back into Design tab, go to the Insert Frame, wait for it. We're going to pick on you. I'm sure the orientation is going to be wrong. Oh, orientation is correct. So I picked on those 2 lines. I guarantee if I pick on this one, it's going to throw it to the outside. So I hold down on my control key and select that line, say apply. Yep, go ahead and save that to those file names. I'm going to go ahead and wait for it. Pick here. Notice that the orientation is incorrect. Pick on the outside dot. Again, these little dots are super nice. 2019 did not have these, and I tell you what, it is really nice to have that. Makes life a lot easier. Okay, just to double check that we've got those going to the inside. That looks good. Apply. Say OK. We're so close. Cancel. Okay. Let's see where we've got this. Now you can see I've got a little bit of a problem here with this tube. I want the center line of this tube to be the center line of that. So I'm going to have to go back in here. And this is exactly what I want to show you is I'm going to highlight that tube and that tube. I'm going to right click and I'm going to use delete with frame generator. If you just delete the file, it does some weird things with, especially if you've got end features like mitering and coping and so on and so forth, you'll have errors galore. So delete those features with that delete with frame generator, and it makes life a lot cleaner, a lot more simple. You'll be happy about that. So let's go back into our tube. This time I'm going to click on this one. Wait for it. Oh, it's so slow. Okay, let's go here and see if we are correct. We are on the center line. We're on the center line. Switch this around. We are in the inside, and we're going to go apply. Say OK. Do the same thing over here. Select there. I'm going to, let's do F4. Get this moved over here so that we can actually see it again. We want to flip that to this side here. Say apply. Okay. Before I even go and start cleaning up these corners, I'm going to go ahead and throw in our round tube, and then we can clean everything up. So I'm going to go Insert Frame from the Design tab, and I am going to go round tube, if I can find it, square tubing, pipe, round bars, nope, pipe standard, nope, 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 nope. There's got to be one in here. Square, square, rectangle, rectangle, square, pipe. T-shape, W, WT, rolled steel, square tubing. Oh my gosh, you don't have a round tube. We are going to fake it. Because pipe, let's go pipe. We are so going to fake this. Ah, it's terrible. I can't believe they don't have a round tube. We are going to use 1.5 inch. It says 145 wall. Whatever. We are going to, because 1.5 inch, actual OD is 1.9. It's really close to 2 inches. That's fine. It's close enough. It'll get us what we need for this tutorial. Let's go stainless steel. I'm sorry. I like to have it say exactly what it is. 304 stainless steel, satin brushed. To the center. Pick on that. Oh, one other thing I want to show you is this placement here. So right now, this little mid dot, insert members on edges, it's selecting the whole entire line. If you select this, insert members between points, you can actually pick this end point here and this end point here. Or we could select, let's just go ahead and do it. Let's go like this. I could select this point to this point, and it'll just draw it from those 2 points. Or, let's deselect that. Let's go from this point to this point, and there it is. Most of the time you're drawing your sketches so that you can easily just use this insert members from edges, and just select the whole entire line. Much faster, much easier. Let's apply it. Okay. Now let's clean this up. I'm going to trim you, face, and let's see if it'll let me do it. Nope, it's not going to let me do it. So we've got to notch it. So we are going to notch that one to this one. There we go. Now it used to, back in 2019, yeah, it did it. It used to leave the inside of this, so it would just notch it so that the material that it's going up to was the cutting part. Now it's notching it to the face itself, so that's a nice little updated feature. So let's miter these two here. Miter you to you. Boop. Okay. Hit my space bar to bring that back, that feature back up. That feature to that feature. Boop. Okay. Another new addition to 2020, Inventor 2020, is insert end cap. Beautiful, I love it. So I'm going to pick on this. And it's asking what thickness. We're going to go with 0.1196. Let's do 11 gauge offset. Let's do 0.125. And that appearance, let's go polished. Brushed. I got to change that brushed finish because that is just way too aggressive. Whoever brushed that sucker, they have made some serious score marks in that. So let's flip this around to the other side, put this one on. It should use the same part number as this one over here because it recognizes. Actually, let's see if they've updated this too. Let's go edit, and I want to pick on this side too. Finish. Edit with frame generator. Let's see if we can do both sides. I think we can. It's going to let me do it. Sweet. A lot of these features are new to 2020, so I'm still kind of learning where everything is at. So let's go up to View. Object visibility, turn off all the work features. Let's turn off the sketches. Actually, we could take this part feature and we can turn off the visibility. There is our frame. That is the very start of our frame. So pretty quick, fairly quick for getting this frame set up. We still have a little bit of cleanup to do. I still got to clean up the corners. But I might leave, although it's kind of a headache for you guys, the fabricator, to have to notch these, but man, it makes such a strong joint. So I might just leave that. I kind of like the way that it looks. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. That should finish that for this one. The next thing we'll do is we'll put in a couple plates. We'll put in our caster plates and finish it up from there.